Welcome back to Tesla Truck Channel. It's been a month now since Tesla unveiled the Cybertruck back in November 21st in Los Angeles. And anyone who has an interest in the truck has probably already seen a number of videos, read online articles, did their own research on the website from Tesla. But I thought I'd go ahead and give a 1 month recap about everything that's happened so far and see where things might lead to in the coming months. And I'm hoping to do this monthly update um, every single month. That way we can track the progress of the truck and see where the company is going and what new features or things that we'll discover about the truck. And I'm hoping that it will be informative for my handful of subscribers so far. I appreciate you guys. Just continue watching, and I hope you guys subscribe to help me, you know, create some enthusiasm about making the channel. I know that I'm just talking over the microphone, and a lot of people are already doing that. But we all have to start somewhere, right? All right. So once again, the truck was unveiled on the 21st in LA. Originally, when it came on the stage, a lot of people were shocked by the look, and eventually people got over that. And the majority of people mention, and you'll probably hear this a lot too, is that it grew on me. And I think that comes from the fact that we're so used to seeing something that resembles a truck, and then also what the Tesla claims to be a truck, but it looks nothing like a typical truck. It looks like a supercar, like a Lambo, the size of a truck. So that was an interesting development in terms of people's psyche and how they changed from having a very rigid mindset to becoming more open to its design. And that, of course, gets into the next part of what the truck offers. It's an exoskeleton 30X steel or 30X steel. It's a proprietary steel that Tesla is working with someone who has already developed this steel, and they're going to start putting into the Cybertruck. The steel is going to be extremely difficult to work with in the press, so that's why they have to cut it a certain shape and make it straight and linear, so that's easier for them to assemble it. And all they can really do is bend it by scoring a section and then using something to kind of just bend it a little bit. And I've heard that what they're gonna do with the steel is they're gonna cut it with water and then TIG weld it. So that's a pretty common way of manufacturing and welding steel. TIG welding is probably the best compared to the other methods of welding. It's gonna look real nice. I'm hoping that where the lines meet up and where the joints are, they're gonna find a way to make it look will not have weld marks showing up. So for me, that's a big deal, because when you have a vehicle like this, you want everything to look nice and clean. And so far in the demo vehicle that they have, the lines look real nice. But of course, production, we don't know what it's gonna be like. And then the next feature that they're talking about are gonna be there's a rear tonneau cover. That's probably one of the most unique thing about this truck, is that it has this tonneau cover right here, which is very unique. It can possibly have an add-on for solar panel charging, so that's really unique. We have a 110 and 220 volt outlet in the back. That's in case you want to use heavy-duty equipment and standard equipment. Then air suspension, 16-inch of ground clearance, seating for 6, as you can see right here. A large, I believe, 17-inch display panel in a horizontal or landscape position. And here is some potential add-on. We have a camper package. This is for people who really like to be outdoor. This looks kind of neat. I'm hoping that it is not too expensive. Okay. Then one of the biggest thing that happened during the show or the presentation was that they had this glass. They call it was it metal glass, or a special type of glass that was supposed to be extremely hard and difficult to break.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
then the guy comes up and takes a
Oh my
giant
fucking god.
slams into it,
Well,
and then boom, breaks it, right? And then the second one, They tried it again because I think Elon was super shocked. He was like, and you'll hear him say that. He actually just said, "Oh my fucking god!" And then they did it again, threw another one, and it also broke. And the reason he gave out of that
Oh my
was
fucking
that
god.
what had
Well,
happened before testing the glass with the metal ball was that he had Franz, I guess he was the designer, and used a sledgehammer and he hit it twice, right? Hit it like once and then hit it again. So it created micro fractures within the glass structure, and that led to it being much more easier and prone to breaking when you slam it with the giant metal ball. So I guess they did not anticipate that, and after the demo, when they were having people coming out and driving, not driving, but be in the vehicle for a test drive, they had that replaced. Then they demonstrated. Um, Let me see what else. We had an electric quad that they had a guy come out, sit on a quad, he rolled it up, pull down this tailgate, and pull out the ramp. That's a really unique looking ramp that they had built into the tailgate. There's no truck right now that has it. Normally you can buy a set of ramps to put on there, but this is actually part of the tailgate, and then he just pulled it down, squatted down the bottom half of the truck to to make it a little more manageable. And then the guy rolled a cyber quad, electric cyber quad, straight into the bed. And that cyber quad can also be charged with the either the 110 or 220 outlet volts of the 220 outlet that's in the back of the bed. I don't know how much that quad is gonna be, but I imagine people who love ATVs will probably buy that. Okay, so those are pretty essentially nothing has been mentioned about new features from a month ago. Everything we know so far from the presentation is really all that we know. The price point, of course, is 40,000, 50,000, and 70,000 with no other options. Those are just base price. Also, at that base price, there's no incentive deducted yet. So whatever incentive is available when this vehicle gets released, you can also take that into account. The other feature that you can click when you order is the self-driving option. If you put on full self-driving, it becomes an additional $7,000 off price. And that might be a good deal for now, because later on when it gets released, that 7,000 may very well be increased by another 1,000 or two. And the reservation was only $100, so this allow a lot of people to reserve and then talk about it, and I'm pretty sure it inflated the total number of reservations that Elon released. Originally, they had what, like 100,000 reservations quite quickly, and then another week or so later, he mentioned that it was up to 250, and this was back in like um, early December. So by now, the 22nd of December, we don't know what that number is. If I had a guess, it's probably like 300 plus. Of course, a substantial amount of that number are going to be people who's canceling the reservation. So don't be surprised if a huge percentage of all the reservations are going to get canceled when production begins. Speaking of when production begins, originally when they put on this order page, you'll see that the the single motor was going to begin production first, because it was under they were working under the assumption that people wanted a $40,000 truck, and that was probably going to be the highest one in demand. It turned out to be the opposite. The majority of people, over 80% of people, chose either the dual motor or the tri motor. So what they did was they switched the production date on the website now from late 2020, well, from 2022 for those two models, the dual motor and tri motor, and they push it back to late 2021. So that's about 2 years from now, right? That's when we'll begin seeing them get produced and being on the street. And then the single motor gets pushed back to 2022. I don't blame them. I think it's a good financial move on their part. Now, what else are we gonna talk about in terms of updates? Um, there is this speculation that the truck may not be classified as a full size truck. It might be classified as like a Super Duty level, a Class 2B, and it's because of the size of it, and also, but mostly it's really just the gross vehicle weight rating. As you know, this vehicle is capable of having a 3,500 pound payload, and depending on how heavy the vehicle is, if you have a vehicle that weighs between 8,501 pounds to like 10,000 pounds, it becomes like a Class 2B, which is a medium duty classification for trucks. So imagine if this truck was, I don't know, like 7,000 pounds, and if you have like 6,500 pounds, right? And this thing has a payload of 3,500 pounds, and that's gonna put it up at that level. And if it was 7,000 pounds and the payload is 3,500, so that might even be, even higher depending on how much the vehicle finally weighs when it gets made. And we don't really know that. We don't know how heavy this stainless steel unibody is. I mean, it's a robust body, it's heavy duty, it's claimed to stop a 9mm bullet, which is very unique, and it's also extremely, rigid, very hard. A lot of people were worried that there would be no crumble zone in this body design because of how rigid everything is. So that's a solution that they're gonna have to work on that solution, because if it doesn't have any decent crumble zone or protection for the passenger, they're gonna have a hard time getting it past, the government's requirement. So we'll wait and see how that works itself out eventually. Now, we also have to talk about, well, going back to the size of the truck. One of the issue that people had back then was during the unveil of the vehicle, they showed this video of the Ford F-150 getting pulled by the Cybertruck in a tug of war, and the camera kind of rotated to show that it was actually going uphill, and the Cybertruck still won. A lot of people were whining, crying, and complaining about it. And from a physics point of view, people said that this was a meaningless comparison because the Cybertruck was heavier, it's all-wheel drive. The Ford was two-wheel drive, it's a rear-wheel drive, and the bed was not loaded. So therefore, it was kind of a pointless comparison. And that leads me to the point that I don't think it matters that the F-150 is going to be 4x4. Even if you put it up against this truck, at the end of the day, this truck is going to be able to pull it. It has higher towing rating. I'm pretty sure the torque and the horsepower are all higher. So people can complain all they want. They're going to have an issue trying to compete with this truck when it comes to the tug of war. And if this truck is really classified as a medium duty, I guess you're gonna have to put it up against the 250 or the F250, or any of those Super Duty from Ram or GM. And there's a chance that this truck might be able to pull them too, unless it's one of those diesel 4x4 with a lot of towing power. And I think in terms of incentive for this truck, by the time it gets released, I'm not sure if there's going to be any good tax incentives available. If you've been following the news, they're talking about not extending the tax credit for Tesla and GM and other electric vehicle manufacturers because they had gone beyond that 200,000 unit mark, or at least the tax are going to get reduced greatly. And by the time this truck comes around, we don't know what the landscape is like in terms of incentives and also the state budget and so on. So the federal budget. So that makes it very unlikely that we have to rely on incentive to get a discount this truck. But hopefully, when it comes out, we'll be able to have some of that. I think that would be kind of neat to just get some money back. Let's see. So we have the specs, we got the price point. Let me see. And I think for the most part right now, people are just waiting for new features to be revealed. We know that full self-driving it can be happen. Hopefully it comes to fruition by the time this truck gets released. Tesla is gonna try to release some full self-driving tests for a limited number of owners or employees. So we're gonna see how that plays out. And I think that's it. I mean, within a month, there hasn't really been a lot of change since the unveiling of the vehicle. Um, Elon has answered a couple of questions on Twitter. Now that when I'm thinking back, he mentioned that they might make the vehicle like an inch or two narrower instead of being so wide, and I hope that they can make a vehicle like they can make a smaller vehicle and give that as an option, but not change the size of this particular vehicle. I kind of like the size and I like the look, and I really don't want it to change too much. I think that if people wanted a smaller truck, they can buy a smaller Cybertruck if they make that available. But for me, I hope they don't really squeeze it, make it smaller, make it shorter. I just like it the way it is, and I hope that they just bring to market with what they showed us. But if they were gonna make some changes for safety requirements, then that's understandable. But I hope they're not too drastic, because if it starts having too many, I guess, changes that we weren't expecting, I don't know. You might feel a little bit disappointed as to being forced to see what it was presented and then now buying something that's a little different. But I'm sure they're smart enough to not. I'm sure they're smart enough to avoid that issue. All right, and so that's about all that's really happened in the last month. There's not a lot of changes. Hopefully, next month will bring us some more news. On a side note, when this truck was released, Tesla stock experienced a drastic drop, like 6-7%. But surprisingly enough, within a month, it shot up like a rocket. It is now, as of December 22nd, it's about like $405, and then Monday when it opens, we're gonna see how that goes. People have speculated that every time Tesla stocks go up, it tends to drop, but this could very well be the moment in which Tesla stock continues to rise. We'll see how that plays out. That'll be very interesting. All right, next month I'll do the same video with hopefully some more new information for you guys. And thanks for watching.